Alright everybody, let's get into this. We got a banger of a matchup today. Bidoux versus Sickboyyy. Sorry for the impromptu sloppy setup here. I just ran in here. No one was able to cast. Wanted to get in here, give you guys a good show. We have our boy Bidoux on Back to Warcraft playing Sickboyyy, representing perfectly balanced Orc versus Undead. And with that, let's jump right into the action. We have Bidoux clearly practicing a lot on War 3 Champions with a ranking of a solid, smooth 1500, going up against Sickboyyy in the top right on Last Refuge. Now, I have not watched too many Bidoux games before. I've seen plenty of his casts on Back to Warcraft, so curious to see what type of style of Undead he likes to play. Going up against Sickboyyy, representing perfectly balanced on the Orcs. Pretty standard opener from both players. 1600 MMR, is that correct? I need to update that. Let me update that really quick. I think this is 1500, if I'm not mistaken. Ish. And I don't know the scores. I'll have to update that. And this is week 4. Do we have the gym up here? Perfectly balanced versus standings. Alright, perfectly balanced sits at 45. Monkeys 50. 50, 45. 50, 45. Perfectly balanced, in need of some points here. This is one of the final weeks. Is this week 4 or week 5? I am not sure. I think it's week 4. And we are going to see some Headhunter action coming on out with the Farseer ready to pounce. But Bidoux needs to take a look. What is he up against? Bidoux has seen the late barracks coming in synchronicity with the War Mill, expecting Headhunter Farseer any minute now. Death Knight is outgoing, standard Fiend style. Rod is purchased, and the DK will begin killing some critters. Oh, they're already killed. Acolyte did some work, raising some skeletons and getting ready for the Farseer harass. Bidoux going to try to take this first camp down before he gets too much pressure. Farseer is now here. Bidoux was able to get the circlet from the first green camp, but Sickboyyy wants to clean up the rest here, get some XP, but the Trappers have another thing in mind, and that is to hold down and tie down those wolves. And not able to take any XP from those wolves as they are resummoned by Sickboyyy, efficiently denying the XP from the Undead player. Bidoux doing everything he can just to take a little bit of XP down, as the Headhunters are now approaching with Fiends shortly to come to defend Bidoux. Tier 2 has started for both players. They're both right about the same timing.
A player's forces are under attack.
And Sickboyyy is just going to go creep Bidoux's green camps. Deny any easy creep routes. Leaving really only this green camp here, and maybe this a little more tough, a little more difficult orange camp up here. The Expo is not too difficult to creep either, but it will certainly make the early game creeping just a little bit harder, as the Farseer wants to go back and see what Bidoux is up to. Bidoux also has something similar in mind, wants to go see what Sickboyy's up to, and wants to potentially deny some creeps, but just a little too late, and will only be able to take a wolf as a consolation prize for his scouting efforts. Army back, resting on the Blight, getting ready for any sort of offensive attack that could come from the Orc player. And Sickboyyy wants a piece of that Ogre Magi, wants his item. We'll first have to go through the Ogre Warriors of this game. Taking down some XP. Bidoux starts creep route onto the easier green camp. Will we see some Expo attempts once that Lich is out? Once the Tauren Chieftain, I assume, would be hero number 2, is out? Or will we see an all-out attempt with this Mass Headhunter style? Potion of Greater Healing on the Consume camp. As Bidoux, I believe, gets a Slippers of Agility. Not the best item. Will likely be sold. As Sickboyyy now gets to his own green creep camps. And will quickly take down this Troll Priest to collect that item before Bidoux shows up. And Bidoux going with the Dark Ranger for a fast push onto the Orc base to punish any early greed. But first, we'll stop at the Merchant. And get this item from the Ogre Magi. Sentry Wards was collected from the Farseer at this green camp. Can be useful to see any of those burrowed units from the Fiends. You drop that Sentry Ward down, see any invisible units. Very helpful if you do not have a Dust handy. Meanwhile, I believe Wand of Mana Stealing will be really nice on the Farseer to deny any further Wolves or Chain Lightning from being cast, which will certainly help when trying to sustain your army when dealing with the high damage output of these Headhunters. The damage output of these Headhunters is nothing to scoff at. Very hard to deal with early game. It gets a little easier mid-game, but then they turn into Berserkers into the late game, and then their damage output scales yet again, and also their HP increases. And then by then, you have some support from the Tauren Chieftain and potentially some Bloodlust from Shaman. Bidoux going to go for the opponent's natural. Going to steal the Gloves of Haste from the Ogre Magi, as Sickboyyy has a very similar idea, and they're going to go help each other out. You know, we're all friends here at GNL. We're going to go creep each other's expos, make it easier for each other to expo. Such a friendly game. Bidoux potentially wants to take his first glimpse into the Orc base, but first, we'll take the small green camp, maybe raise a couple more skeletons with the Dark Ranger. Meanwhile, this Headhunter army is getting scarier by the minute, and it is accumulating fast, as I believe we might see some Shaman to back up, but first, some Raiders to lock down some of those Fiends. Bidoux swinging around, going clockwise at the top of the map to get his first pick off, and maybe able to pick off this Raider. Will he see it? Will he be able to get some body blocks, some surrounds? No, the Raider does escape and is able to retreat back to the base. Perhaps a burrow will be taken as sacrifice. And the Orc army is slowly coming. The Apocalypse is coming. Mass Headhunters is coming. Is Bidoux ready for it? Will he be able to take a burrow as a prize? And he does. The burrow does go down, but will he be able to save the Fiend? He does. A nice coil on that Fiend as he starts targeting the low hit point Headhunters. One Headhunter will fall as the Fiend does get healed back up to full. And one more Headhunter may fall. We need to see some of those damaged Headhunters get to the back of that battle and stay alive as those Headhunters are falling one by one. Now the Wolves are on the Fiends, trading ranged units. Only one Fiend remains for the Undead army, 3 Headhunters for the Orc army, and a Raider is now in the field. We can start to get some ensnares on those Fiends. All Fiends have now fallen, but there are a lot of skeletons on the field, being able to take down this Raider as Bidoux does retreat back home, and we did see about 3 Headhunters fall for the price of 3 Fiends. And we leave here 30 food army with Sickboyyy going to tier 3. Raiders have paused production, but Ensnare is trained. Bidoux 38 food. Fiends up to tier 3. I expect some Lich and Orb of Darkness coming next, and Destroyers potentially also on the way. Statues are live. They are online. We're going to have some mana and health regen as we start to creep the Merc camp and take this item from the Rock Golem, while the Laboratory is being crept from the Orc player. Now, I would potentially like to see some Bloodlust, some Shaman. I don't see many Tier 2 or Tier 3 upgrades outside of the Raider Ensnare. I know we like to see a lot of Bloodlusted Berserkers as part of this Headhunter Farseer meta. But will Bidoux be able to counter that with some nice devours from these destroyers? Being able to devour that lust. Getting Orb of Annihilation, I believe what it is, for the destroyers. Very powerful, very potent attack upgrade. However, destroyers are very expensive and very weak against berserkers with Bloodlust and Berserk. Here we go. Death Knight slightly out of position, but Bidoux quickly recovers and gets that Death Knight back into position. A lot of damage on these skeletal minions as both wolves have fallen. And again, targeting going on to Sickboyy's Headhunters as skeletons raise. These skeletons doing amplified damage to the Berserkers now. Berserkers are now upgraded. Medium armor taking extra damage from the normal damage of the skeleton minions. Maybe gonna need to get some Dispel in the form of some Spirit Walkers, Disenchant, to handle these skeletons. These skeletons aren't going away. They're going to be here the rest of the game. This Dark Ranger is getting more and more powerful. You're going to see more and more, and also more potent versions of these lesser Dark minions throughout the rest of the game. Going for the red camp. Going for the big item from the Ogre Lord. This camp does hurt, but if you take all the damage on the summon units like Bidoux is doing, it doesn't hurt so bad. And for his efforts, a Helm of Valor, Strength and Agility, going right to the Dark Ranger. As Agility is the Dark Ranger's primary attribute, going to get some attack damage, and attack speed, and armor. Going to get a Flute of Accuracy, who is going to go to the Shadow Hunter here, giving a nice range DPS increase to the Berserkers, making that mass Headhunter army even more powerful. And still, no major tier 3 upgrades happening besides the Berserker upgrade, but we do have Kodos now on the map, hopefully to devour some of those fiends and provide the War Drums DPS increase that you can see here. Going for both red camps. This would be nice snipes from Bidoux to get both red camp items. What will the Ogre Lord drop this time? We do have a Medallion of Courage, increase the strength and intellect. The Lich is going to go pick that up. A nice +5 boost for the Lich. Going to really like that. And some health increase to help as well with the HP regen. Making this Lich that much more beefy, that much more potent. Would love to see maybe some claws purchases from the... oh wait, no, we don't have one of those on this map, do we? That's Concealed Hill. From the not the tavern, but the other thing. And a Fast Expo goes up, but it will be canceled. That is a big loss of resources, and the Farseer gets targeted, single-targeted. Death Coil Nova are incoming. Torch Chieftain is here, wants to get in position to get some stops on those fiends, but that Death Knight is so low and it falls! As Sickboyyy does retreat back with a quick Chain Lightning snipe, immediately retreating. But the trade-off there was the tiny town hall got wasted, right? And that's like 650 gold. Got canceled immediately in return for the Death Knight. The Death Knight will be rebought. As the Lich wants to get up to that critical level 3 for that level 2 Nova. Very powerful. And here it comes, level 2 Nova. With Death Pact, or Sacrificial Pact, whatever that's called. To sacrifice undead units and return mana. The Death Knight being targeted once again. Some Chain Lightning and Stomp on that Death Knight would be the end of it. Torrid Chieftain does get focused down. Healing Wave out. Torrid Chieftain getting focused down and falls immediately, but Ankh of Reincarnation. The Torrid Chieftain will be back and will be back quickly. The Headhunters are falling fast. A lot of DPS output from this undead army. Torrid Chieftain getting focused down yet again and falls immediately. Death Knight is here. Will be hexed to prevent using any sort of Death Coil and single target focus on the Death Knight, but gets away with 35 health. In the meantime, Sickboyyy does need to retreat again. Gosh, that single target nuke damage from the undead with the Coil Nova and silence capabilities, preventing any healing. You know, you silence the Shadow Hunter, prevent any healing, get your Coil Novas rolling on the weaker ranged heroes, and you just see the power of the undead nuke. Unbelievable. What a turn of events here. Going to scout this expo again, making sure nothing is coming up. And I imagine we'll see something similar. But keep in mind, Bidoux was able to get both red camps. That's a big advantage. Bidoux does have the item advantage. 49 food for Sickboyyy. 55 food for Bidoux. And no economic advantage really going to either player, although a failed expo attempt from Sickboyyy might put him at a slight disadvantage, as all of that gold was lost in the failed expo attempt. And a perfect timing from before on Bidoux getting to that expo camp. But the Death Knight caught out of position again. Will need a potion of invulnerability, maybe a TP, maybe an invis pot, and does have to use that TP to get out of there, caught slightly out of position by the orc who just happened to be roaming by, potentially to snipe some invulnerability potions or scrolls of healing out of the shop. There are 2 shops. Not sure what's in the inventory of each one. We have 2 scrolls of healing and 1 invulnerability potion in the northwestern shop. Or sorry, I guess just the western shop, and then the eastern shop, I'm not quite sure what is in stock. Checking out the expo. Meanwhile, Bidoux pulling the lab. Maybe use some reveals. Both players seem okay on lumber. Don't expect any shredders, but will we see some cheeky Zeppelin plays? Meanwhile, maybe gonna go buy some much-needed inventory from the merchant. We'll see if anything gets purchased here. Just chilling with the goblins. Gonna buy a potion of invuln for the Tauren Chieftain, who is the target of single-target nukes from Bidoux. Here we go. The orc wants to press the undead base, and instead we'll just hover around the outskirts of the base. Headhunter damage on these destroyers. Those destroyers are very expensive, and single target nuke right on the Shadow Hunter. See you later. Coil Nova too strong, but the Death Knight also getting single target focus with an Ankh of Reincarnation and just popped an invuln scroll. Single target nuke onto the Farseer. Farseer is falling and falling fast, but has a health potion to keep it stabilized. Meanwhile, Coil on the Fiend to keep it sustained. Bidoux pulling that Death Knight back. A lot of DPS from all of the ranged units. The Fiends and the Headhunters able to do a lot of damage. Single target damage onto the Tauren Chieftain. Then the Tauren Chieftain does fall. Level 5 awarded to the Death Knight. And now we see the Farseer getting nuked down. A lot of Coil, a lot of Nova, a lot of Fiends. And the Orc Army does not have what it takes for Bidoux, his Fiends, his Coil, his Nova, and Silence as Bidoux takes game 1. Really good showing from both opponents there. Love to see that timing from Bidoux, hitting that critical timing before that expo got up. That was a big resource lost for the orc player. I believe that was a tiny Great Hall, and that's a very expensive purchase. So seeing that cancel, that great timing from Bidoux was really clutch, really critical. And then you had some great timings from Sickboyyy, catching the Death Knight at the merchant shop. Also scouting the expo, making sure no second expo goes up for the undead player as well. However, Bidoux had the better creeping. Was able to get both red camps. Was able to get that expo. Was able to cancel that tiny Great Hall. That's a big deal. It all added up into the late game. And then those constant barrages of single target nuke from the undead. Just too much for the orc to handle. The Farseer down. The Tauren Chieftain down. And with that, Bidoux with a solid definitive game 1. As we move on to game 2, we are going to await the game name, potentially the same, but I have not received any messages yet. So how'd you all think that game went? I thought that was a great game 1. My lights aren't... There they are. There are the lights. And while we wait for game 1, let's get a prediction going for game 2. Dashboard. I think both players are still in the pre-lobby here. All right, we're going to run this prediction for 2 minutes. Game name is... Maybe it's the same one? Bidoux Sick 2? There we go. All right, prediction is live. Let us know your thoughts. Who will be taking game 2? Bidoux or Sickboyyy? Game 2 will be on Northern Isles. Twitch commercials. Ah, yeah, they're the worst. I don't like them either. Sorry, Korea. Last thing I want to do to Korea is serve commercials. And I am ready. Waiting for Bidoux to say ready. Bidoux is ready. Sickboyyy is ready. Perfectly balanced. Your points are hanging in the balance as we roll on to Game 2 with a potential sweep on the line here for Bidoux to capture all 3 points. Into the game we go. We have our orc player, Sickboyyy, representing perfectly balanced in the bottom left of Northern Isles. And our orc player, who took Game 1 in the top right, Bidoux, representing the monkeys. Currently in second place, the monkeys would love that 3-0 point distribution. Bidoux. One time, brother. One time. Get that sweep. And speaking of perfectly balanced, your caster is perfectly biased, as I am also a team member of the monkeys. But I would like to see a good game. I like to cast good games. So would love to see some improvements from Sickboyyy here. Maybe some quicker timings with that expo, if that is what you want to do. Maybe some casters, some lust. To help deal with the high damage output. Maybe healing wards in the back. I'm not quite sure how you deal with the single target nuke. I mean, for me as human, really it just takes, like, really, really special attention to your Archmage. Always having an invuln pot on the Archmage. Undeads love to target that Archmage. I imagine the story is the same for the Farseer, but we will see Blade Master first. Is Bidoux ready for some Blade Master snipes? The Hitman style. So gotta keep those invulns rolling. Gotta be ready for those single target nukes from the Undead. The Undead single target nuke is so potent. Coil Nova is no joke. And when you have silence in there to prevent any sort of healing from your Shadowhunter, the times just get tougher. Acolyte killing a couple critters along the way. Going to scout and seeing the Blade Master, the Grunts. So now Bidoux has a good idea of what is coming, and it is not Farseer Headhunters this game. No, no. We're going back to the more standard Blade Master Grunts. Although I guess nowadays standard is just Farseer Headhunters. It's so strong, potent early game, and also transitions into a nice late game with Berserkers and Shaman. Bidoux with the Skeleton Warriors would maybe like to see the Skeleton Warriors taking a little bit more damage than the Death Knight here. But perhaps it's all in the plan. Blade Master easily creeping and wants to take down this Acolyte. Shame on you for spying on me. We will shoot the messenger. And the Acolyte will fall with one more slice. Well, maybe sending the Grunt to do the dirty work. Will the Acolyte make it to the camp? The Acolyte will sacrifice itself to the Ogres, but no.
A player's forces are
the Acolyte does make it away with 10 health. But Blade Master here to finish the job. Death comes for you. And Bidoux continuing his green creep route. Trying to get to that critical level 2. Get that Unholy Aura. Be able to keep up with the Blade Master. And be able to outrun the Blade Master. Level 2 is awarded. Unholy Aura will be trained. We now have Critical Strike and Windwalk here for the Blade Master. Blade Master is now well equipped to do some hit and runs, harassments. Be able to really chunk those Crypt Fiends. Force the Death Knight to use a lot of coil, a lot of mana. Let's take a look at the macro really quickly. We have Tier 2, 3/4 of the way done for the Orc. Tier 2, about half done for the Undead player. And our first encounter of the matchup Critical strikes rolling out now for the Blade Master, and target is now on the Blade Master from the undead player. Wants to get that blade as low as possible, force it to windwalk, force it to retreat. The longer this Blade Master sticks around, the more of a nuisance it will be, the more disruption to your creep route. And one Skeleton Warrior will fall, worth some XP to the blade. And able to get the blade down to about 40% health, but as always, windwalk into health. Sentry Ward is dropped to grant visibility of that Blade Master and cancel that salve. Salve is now canceled. Going to want to see another salve placed on that blade, and there it is, canceling the windwalk, but getting that Blade Master healed up to full for another hit and run. As Bidoux wants to finish this green camp, collect all the XP, and the blade is here. Blade is invisible. Bidoux does not know it yet, but now he does, as one Skeleton Warrior does fall, granting more XP to the blade. And single targeted onto the Death Knight. Death Knight able to see the blade, coils rolling on the Blade Master. Both heroes definitely damaged. Gonna need to be cautious. These grunts are very strong, able to deal with those fiends. Able to take a lot of auto attacks from those fiends and deal a lot of damage. Forcing a lot of coils to be used, but none yet. A lot of hero focus thus far. Tier 2 has finished. Nothing online coming yet besides another burrow. A Sickboyyy is supply blocked currently. Potentially a late burrow there. And we do see the invisible Blade Master able to preemptively coil here. One Skeleton Warrior will fall, another is risen. And Death Knight taking a lot of damage from these grunts. These grunts are just pounding away on that Death Knight. Able to get another coil on that grunt. Will the grunt fall? The grunt is pulled back. That fiend auto attack is not able to get off as the Death Knight does retreat to Blight, get some increased healing on the Blight. And Sickboyyy just kind of looking at the fiends for now, but able to get some critical strikes on those fiends. Fiends take a ton of damage, and the Death Knight swinging around the bottom bend to maybe get a coil off. But Hex is now here. Slowed down the Death Knight. Can we get some surrounds with another Hex potentially? Hex is now on cooldown. Healing potion popped. And checking out the macro, we do have Slaughterhouse coming up. Supply blocked at the moment, Bidoux. So not going to be able to get any item, any units produced at the moment. Again, these players are so nice, creeping each other's expos. As Sickboyyy wants this Ogre Magi's item, and he will get Claws of Attack +9, very potent for the Blade Master, stacking on top of those critical strike attempts. As this weak grunt, Bidoux has seen it with the Sentry Ward. Easy pickings, if he can get over here and just coil both of these grunts who need to be salved immediately. And no more salves, as the grunt army is looking quite weak at the moment. We're going to switch up here. Looking at the macro, Bestiary's rolling yet again. 31 food out of 41 for Sickboyyy. Bidoux still supply blocked, going to opt in for 2 Zigs. To defer that supply block to later in the game. We're going for the westernmost orange camp, the Trappers, the Tuskars. And we'll see what he gets for his troubles. It's the Sorcerer also going down. We get a Scroll of the Beast for the Orc player. And is that a Periapt for the Undead player? Nice health boost. Gonna help with that single target focus of the blade. That Death Knight's gonna be very hard to take down. Orb of Lightning on the blade will help with the purges, keep those fiends in place. These purges will lock down those fiends at random chances, random intervals. And with that critical strike stacking with the circlets, stacking with the claws, we now have a +18 blade able to do very potent critical strikes to get these fiends down. And we'll buy nothing.
Forces are under attack.
We'll buy dust. We want to see those burrowed fiends. We want to be able to secure those kills of the fiends. Meanwhile, the Orc potentially going for an Expo attempt, or just preparing for another tiny Great Hall purchase. As these Orcs are still really weak, these grunts, want to get those grunts healed up to full. Really want to see some salves on those grunts. Nice pendant of energy. And as the Blade Master almost missed this, focus down. I imagine just got coiled Nova to oblivion. And what happened here? Too greedy? critical error made by the Orc player here, Sickboyyy, underestimating the potency of the single target nuke of the undead. And potentially a silence, I would imagine, is too, preventing the Windwalk. I'd imagine it was just a wombo combo. Coil, Nova, silence. As a Book of the Dead, and I don't think the Orc player has any dispel to deal with Book of the Dead. That's going to be a nice addition to any engagement. 3 Skeleton Warriors of each type, 3 melee, 3 ranged. Something nice to sit in the front and soak up a lot of this damage. Torn Chieftain with a nice pendant of energy, going to get an extra stomp or two. So just 1 stomp, really. But always helps. Torn Chieftain take a lot of damage, as salves were purchased. Now we can get that army sustained to be able to handle the next encounter. No Expo attempts from either player. Black Citadel here. And no real Tier 3 push from Bidoux outside of the classic statues. Potentially going to morph those into destroyers. As Bidoux now sees Sickboyyy, wants a piece of Sickboyyy. No way to lock that Torn Chieftain down as Speed Scroll is popped. And 1 more Coil could be the end of that Torn Chieftain. Coil is, but the healing wave just enough to save that Torn Chieftain. Great timing from Sickboyyy. Great save. As potentially saves the game right there. Because if that Torn Chieftain fell, it would be very hard to fend off this undead army. As 1 Kodo will fall. Not sure if it ate anything. Nope. And will be turned into a lesser minion. Gonna need to get that Book of the Dead popped to help you out with this push, Bidoux. Sickboyyy needs to retreat, get in better position, but these grunts are so weak. 1 grunt falls. Some headhunters for support. A nice stomp. Those fiends have all been frozen in place as all grunts have now fallen. 1 grunt remaining. And we will see some single target nukes on this Torn Chieftain, but the Torn Chieftain doing everything it can to stay alive. No healing wave. Healing wave is now out for the Torn Chieftain. Bought a potion of healing. Potion of healing is on cooldown. Torn Chieftain needs to get out of here, but will fall. Blademaster is back out, ready to slice and dice these statues. Maybe it's enough DPS as the fiends are falling 1 by 1. The Blademaster slices. Dust of Appearance was popped. Oh, no, it wasn't. We're just able to see. Or the burrow was late, one or the other. And single target. Do we have something to see the invisibility of the Blademaster? Do we have the dust on the undead? No, we do not. A lot of undead summoned units. Need some way to deal with these summons. We need Dispel. Disenchant would be so potent right here. As the Blademaster doing everything it can to slice away these summoned units. Clarity Potion bought. Hoping to get this Blademaster back up to some sort of mana threshold so we can start using Windwalk more often. Get some of those critical strikes out of Windwalk. And it's just enough to hold off Bidoux. The summoned units will fall. All of these summoned units want to get some value out of them. Maybe hit a creep camp really quickly. With the rest of the value you're going to get out of these summoned units. These dark minions are going to all disintegrate right now. 1 fiend remaining. Bidoux needs to get some units rolling immediately, as does our Orc player. As the transition to Berserkers is complete. Torn Chieftain is being rebuilt, revived.
A player's forces are under attack.
Go right back to creeping. Not really close to level 4 yet. We're gonna need a couple, maybe get this camp, maybe this red camp over here. Get a nice item, because Bidoux doing what he did last game. Getting security over these red camps, over the big items on the map. These items really do set you up for a strong late game. As we do see, Claws of Attack plus 12. The Lich is going to love that. There it is. Immediately onto the Lich for plus 17. There's going to be some heavy-duty auto attacks coming from that Lich. Meanwhile, Blademaster also well equipped to do a lot of auto attack damage. Plus 18. Fiends are coming, and now some A-bombs for some frontline support. Torn Chieftain also coming out. Kodo would love to eat some of those A-bombs, get rid of that front line. Bidoux continues creeping off of the red camp into the Scorpion camp. Right next to the Expo. And the Orc player checking out, making sure there's no Expo. No Expo is up. He senses he must be over here at the Arch camp, and a Creepjack has begun. Has been initiated. Wants to take out that statue, reduce the healing, the constant healing throughput of that statue. 1 statue does fall, and we may see some single target nukes beginning from the undead player. But the Blademaster, 204 damage crits. Those fiends are going to melt with 153 damage crit on that fiend. Blade Master continuing to chop up the undead army. Gonna need a coil onto that Dark Ranger. Coil is on the Dark Ranger as the Blade Master does transition over to the statue. Fiends doing everything they can to take out these headhunters. One by one, the headhunters are falling. 35 food for Sickboyyy, 47 food for Bidoux, and the single target nukes have begun on the Shadowhunter. Shadowhunter falls. GG is called, and Bidoux with a smooth 2-0 against our Orc opponent. Very good games from both players as the Monkeys will take week 4, week 5, I don't know which one, for 3 points. Great game, Bidoux. Great game, Sickboyyy. Thank you all so much for coming to the cast.